second. All right, we are good to go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for joining us for the February 14th Council briefing. We have a few items to go over with you tonight. The first item that we will go over is a presentation from our new CIO, Bill Reiger, who is also the director of our Information Services Department. This is a new department that you gave us authorization to spin off on its own for fiscal year 2022. Bill has now been on board for several months and has made some observations and would like to give you a little presentation on what he's observed so far and his thoughts on where he wants to take the department going forward in the future. So Jacob, I know Bill's going to do some screen sharing here, I think, for the PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if he's got control of that or if you do.
Bill, you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I think so. I'm working on it right now. Except I have to open system preferences to do that. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry for the delay. 1 second. Didn't know this was going to happen.
On the upside, we don't have to walk you through how to do it.
No, that's true. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave the meeting and come back in to do it. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay, so we'll give...
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Excuse me.
No problem. And Jacob, do you happen to have a backup of the presentation in case we need you to do the screen share?
I do not, but we could make that happen somehow, I'm sure.
Okay. We'll give him a quick minute.
Unbelievable. Jacob, can I send this to you real quick? It's just giving me a hard time, and I'm sorry about that.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll send it to you right now.
Does anybody still have the music from the halftime show still in their head like I do? If you don't, go shouty. It's your birthday. Now you do.
I thought that was a hologram, by the way. And then he comes down, it's like, oh my God.
That was
He's
crazy.
heavier than what he was. Yeah.
All right, Jacob, it's on its way. You should have it in a minute.
It was a good show, but I think it definitely appealed to a certain generation.
I think people on the older age of the age curve are the ones who say that. Appeal to a different generation.
No, it appealed to my generation. That's why
I didn't watch it. So I
The
don't.
NFL was appealing to those who can afford football tickets.
Ah,
It was like how my age group probably felt about Paul McCartney at the Super Bowl that was here. How long ago was that? 17 years now?
I was his bodyguard during the Super Bowl. Walked him down to the field and back up. He was a super nice guy, very inviting. He wanted me to sit down in the suite with him. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm on leave, but
Dang it.
pro law enforcement too. my brush with.
Any luck, Jacob?
Yeah, I've sent it to him 3 ways now. He should have it in a second.
I'm downloading it right now.
Personally, I think this is an easy way to ask for additional help if you have all this IT issues.
It's either that or every second that goes by, this council is losing confidence in my ability to manage technology. One of those 2 things. There we go. So thank you all for the opportunity to present to you my findings based on my few months here. I really appreciate the opportunity. We're just going to go through this. It's going to be a little bit of a SWOT analysis and some next steps for how I think we can make some improvements in the delivery of the technology services here for the city of Jacksonville Beach. So if you don't mind, Jacob, I'll just kind of give you a little bump and you could go to the next slide. All right, so these are the major overall domains, if you will, that are in a traditional information services department. This department has been a component of the finance department. And recently, as Mike mentioned, we moved it into its own. I've changed the name from information technology to information services because I do believe we are a services department and we provide a service to our city, its employees and its citizens. These are the major domains and how those services are provided. Help desk, and you see whether or not there is a responsible manager for that right now in the department. Help desk infrastructure, that really means kind of our servers, which are our beefy computers that run our applications, and our network, how everything is wired and connected together. That would be infrastructure. Desktop support, enterprise applications. I would also say, in addition to enterprise application, departmental applications. So enterprise applications are those that go across multiple departments, where you have multiple departments using the same application, and departmental applications are used within a single department. Project management is another domain, cybersecurity, data management, and strategic planning. Data management may be something that you have or have not heard before. It is the responsible management of data throughout the enterprise. So what I mean by that is your data accurate? How is it being checked for accuracy? Is your data duplicated in certain places? And is that an efficient use or management of data? So that's kind of what I mean by data management. But these are the primary domains that we use to serve. So you can go to the next one, Jacob. And before I get started, or before I get into this further, I tried to take all the technical terms out of this as best as I could. If you have questions about anything I am presenting, please don't hesitate to ask. I think Mike can see a hand raised and can interrupt. So some basic facts about our IT environment here. There are over 50 multi-department applications. That includes departmental applications, 7 locally installed servers. Those are physical servers. So like a computer on your desk, that's kind of what it looks like, except they're in a closet they're all located in 2 closets within the city. There are 75 virtual servers. And I know that's a kind of maybe a hard concept to get your mind wrapped around, but these are more or less software servers only. And we use those to deliver applications. Those virtual servers live on the physical servers. Approximately 322 desktops, approximately 114 cell phones, and 2 other mobile devices. SunGuard is our primary application suite that we use right now. And based on your approval of our ERP program, we're moving over to Tyler Munis. And some of those projects, we'll be reporting on the update of those in meetings coming up pretty soon. So you'll get an update of where we are with that. Approximately 20 break-fix tickets per day come into the IS ticket system that we work on. And there are over 25 teamwork efforts running concurrently in any one time. This is what we know about. There are other IS related efforts going on in the organization that the Information Services Department does not know about. And we'll address some of that later on in this presentation. There are around 50 plus unique skill sets. These are information or technology-based skill sets required to meet the daily function of this department. Those skill sets range in anywhere from managing hardware technology to managing software technology and cybersecurity as well. Any questions about any of this? Okay.
We have one question, Councilor Jansen.
Yeah.
Yeah, just real quick, aside from the 75 virtual servers, is there redundancy and backup? And maybe this is a question a little too early that you're going to get to later.
No, it's a good place for it. We have those servers. There is for some of them, not for all of them. Everything, first of all, is backed up at least daily, if not more frequently than that. So there is no source of data that we have that is not backed up. For our Tyler Munis environment, for our file storage environment, for our email environment, we have a replicated location offsite that's replicated multiple times per day, and we can move over to that. That's kind of our disaster recovery and business continuity plan. That's going to be changing here in the next few months, but for now, that's what it is. We do not have a offsite location that runs SunGuard, but it is backed up every single day. SunGuard runs our utility billing department and our land management software. Those are backed up again every day, multiple times per day, but there is no offsite contingency there. That's only located within our city walls, so to speak.
Right. Are these SQL servers?
SunGuard is not. SunGuard is what they call an AS400, which is kind of an older technology by IBM. Tyler Munis, I believe it is Microsoft SQL Server. All right, Jacob. So we're going to get into what I would call SWOT analysis, and we'll go ahead and jump right into IS strengths. So essentially, you could read all these bullet points, and I can send this presentation to you, but we have a pretty strong infrastructure, I would say. Our servers are fairly well. Some of them are a little bit older, but they're patched well. We have a good solid network. There are some things in our network that aren't great. We'll get into that. But we have very little downtime. And that is a good sign, actually, of a mature department, is the amount of downtime. That's probably the biggest metric that an IS department should be looking at, is your downtime of your applications. There are some other cybersecurity metrics to look at, but that is really a good one and probably our biggest strength. We don't have people calling us all the time saying they can't get onto their applications, or they can't get onto the internet, which some of our applications are delivered via the internet. So both those things are very, very good. Our staff, they have each other's backs. I think they work well together as a team. They're motivated. They kind of care about what they're doing. They care about the city. Many of them, one of them's been 30 plus years, another 20 plus years. And in IS departments outside of city life where I've worked, that's very, very rare. Most people don't stay around like that 3 to 5 years. If you can keep a technology guy, you're in good shape. But some of these people have been here a long time, which is both good and has some drawbacks. But I think in this case, it's mostly good because they have historical perspective of the decisions that have been made regarding technology here and how it's been deployed, which lends itself to keeping things up and running. So for the most part, our staff, how they work together, and this technology, the hardware that they support, is our biggest strength. All right, Jacob. Weaknesses. I think our biggest weakness, in summary, is that we do not have business partnership with other departments. So if you need a server spun up for any reason, no problem. We could do that for you tomorrow. If you need something connected to the network, no problem. We could do that tomorrow. If you need help supporting your application that you use in your department, sorry, you're on your own. If you need help with an enterprise application, sorry, you're on your own. With the exception of 2 areas. One is the police department, and the other is SunGuard on the AS400. We do have somebody who kind of supports that. But everything else, departments are on their own to support what is going on. We're going to address this with some planning later on in this presentation. But the division of labor is out of balance. But what we do, how we support different departments is way out of balance. We'll help you with your PC, but that's about it. And to be honest with you, most people are using the department, aren't using or are using computers in their departments, aren't using them just so they could say they're using a computer. They actually have work to do, and they have applications to do that work in. And the fact that they can't get support for most of those applications is a big weakness. And it's one of the things that's kind of holding us back for being more successful and more productive. So I would say, again, that's our biggest weakness. Mike and I have been talking about that since my second week here, and have been working on kind of how to shore that area up. And again, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the presentation. All right, Jacob. Opportunities. There are some subtle adjustments we can make in philosophy and approach. One of them is to change the name from the department from technology to services. Again, we are going to become a services group. It's a little bit of an adjustment for the guys that have been there for a long time. My background, before I was in healthcare, I was in the military. And I wear that badge of service with me since I've left. And just because I don't wear a uniform doesn't mean I don't serve. I still do today. So that philosophy comes with me. And that's one of the adjustments that we've already made. There's more to come. We want to align our investments better. The strategic plan that Mike has laid out, the help of City Council, IS has a couple of major components in that, but we have a lot of subcomponents in that. We're going to be supporting most of those things that are in that strategic plan. And we want to align our investments with what is going on in that strategic plan. It seems like it makes sense. And it does. And it seems like, wow, why haven't we been doing that? But we haven't. And maybe part of that is because the strategic plan hasn't been as robust as it is, and there hasn't been an opportunity to align. But now that there is a robust strategic plan, one of the things we'll do in greater measure is align how we invest in technology services with that strategic plan, which I think is going to be excellent. We want to make sure that we bring strategic value to the work that we're doing every single day. We want to make sure that we improve our expense predictableness. We've already been working on some of that. We have what I would call loaded years of expense, where we say we have some networking equipment that needs to be replaced. Why replace all of it every 5 years? Why can't we replace 20% of it every year? And kind of spread that work out throughout every year instead of doing it once every 5 years. That helps us both from a staffing perspective and from a cost predictableness perspective. So those are some of the opportunities that I see that we could start making some adjustments fairly quickly. All right, Jacob. Some threats that we are unable to meet 21st century digital consumer demands. Part of that is because we use SunGuard, an AS400 system. It has a web component. It's not a very friendly web component. That's arguable, depends on who you ask. As you guys are aware, we don't take credit cards in utility billing. We do online, but I will tell you that's it's not put together very well. And that's no one's fault. It's just kind of the way it is. We can make that a lot more robust. We want to be able to meet consumers where they are. And what are they doing? You know, they're on their phones, they're paying things with Apple Pay, they're doing all these neat things, and we want to be able to meet them where they are. We want to reduce friction when it comes to doing business with the city of Jacksonville Beach or living here and engaging with the city. And if we can't do that, you know, that's a detriment, and that's why I have it down here as a threat. Our talent development is another threat. That's something that I'm going to take and have already taken very seriously, to develop talent and make sure that the folks that are on the team want to grow, want to improve. The future complex and critical technologies will be out of reach due to siloed and multi-layered repeated reactive delivery. So what all that means is we, at this point, do not have somebody really who's looking at, let's just say, our IT tickets and say we have 20 tickets a day, that's 600 tickets a month. Where's the theme in all those tickets? What if we have 50 that are the same thing? Who's doing root cause analysis on that? And if that's not happening, then we're just going to continue to run in circles. If we're not getting down to the root of what's going on, and there's not enough focus on root cause analysis. And so that is also something we're going to be working on. But as of right now, unless we do that, we run in circles and end up spending money and time and resources potentially needless.
We've got a question from Councilor Meza.
Sure.
Yeah, I think this question's probably gonna be for Mayor Hoffman, since she was in council when this came up. But what was the reason behind the? I know it came up in council talking about taking credit payments or using your debit card for paying your electric bill and stuff. And I know the city talked about it back then, but nothing has been implemented. Is it because the system doesn't support it? What was it? I can't remember.
Sorry. I think there was a legal reason. Can someone else get this form? There was a legal reason that we weren't able to take credit card payment for utility billing. I'm not sure what it was. And I think whenever that changed, we were just slow to catch up on that. So Mike, Mike might have more insight on that. I'm not sure.
I don't have all the details. I know that our CFO and deputy city manager indicated there were some reasons in the past why we didn't, but now, like you said, we're playing catch up and try and get to a point where we actually can take the credit cards.
Now, I know, now are we ready to start doing that?
We're not there yet. At a future meeting, the CFO will come and ask you for some direction regarding the processing fees from a policy perspective, and that should occur within the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay, and I know if you were to use your MasterCard, Visa, or Amex to pay your electric bill, I know there's a charge for it. Now, who will eat that extra cost? Will it be added on to the consumer or be to the city?
That is part of what the CFO is going to be talking about. And I think that presentation is coming up actually in March. So it'll be coming up very soon to talk about how we're going to facilitate processing credit cards for UB.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep. All right.
No other hands raised, Bill.
What's that?
No other hands raised on that one. You're good to go to the next.
Okay, so this is an action plan that I'm going to be implementing over the next couple of years. Work on, establishing functional teams. We're going to be using some different models than we've been using right now to make our work more efficient. We're going to look at investing in individuals and team shaping and development. Some of these things I'm already doing. We're going to develop an IS steering committee. And an IS steering committee essentially is going to be made up of different directors and business leaders inside of the city. And they're going to help us prioritize our work that we do every single day and projects that we're working on. We're not here for technology's sakes. We're here to advance the mission of the city. And we want to make sure that the business leaders of the city are helping us determine where to prioritize our work. So this IS steering committee is going to be a very important part of how we work going forward. There is already components of it. We have an ERP committee that has been leading the way relative to ERP, and you guys will hear more about that coming up here pretty soon in a different meeting. But that's a subcomponent of what an overall IS steering committee is going to be. But I'm looking forward to putting that together. I'm already working on a charter for that. Phase 2, we're going to have a more robust project planning and execution program in the Information Services Department. They're going to help us focus on the right things through the help of the IS steering committee. Phase 3, we're going to look at our investments and make sure they're aligned appropriately. We're going to look at our work and make sure that the allocation of work is, more proactive, as I was talking about before, less reactive, more proactive, looking at root cause analysis and how can we prevent this moving forward. We need to do a lot more of that than we are now. And that these are all things I'm going to be working on. Phase 1, 2, and 3 are not necessarily aligned by time. They're more aligned by function. The time factor will be woven through. I'm already starting to work a little bit on each one of these, but as far as a framework goes, this is kind of what I want to work on to make the improvements foundationally that I think we need to do in the department to help and support the city. So, Jacob. So let's talk about execution, how we're going to do that. On the left is the current org structure. These are all the roles in the Information Services Department. Some of those titles are not appropriate. They're a little bit old. They're catch-all. And I think that's part of the problem of where we are. So my proposal is to align roles to support the plan. There you see a couple of roles over there on the left, the system administrators. Those are not appropriate titles. I want to move those. We're going to ask to add staff, and the purpose of adding staff would be to build business support capabilities to help the departments run their applications, to help the enterprise applications, those applications that cross many departments, function very well. So we could take full advantage of all of them. We're going to realign some existing staff members that exist in other departments and those that exist within the IS department. So the org chart on your right is what is proposed. We would be adding a manager that goes with our current technology manager. This person would be responsible for enterprise and departmental applications. So on the left side, one area that we're lacking in is our server maintenance. Like I said, we have those virtual servers, the physical servers, but they're different in different areas. So we have some servers in the police department, we have some servers in the O&M building, and we have some servers in City Hall. And the way they're configured and managed is different for each location. And I don't think that should be the case. I think we should have a standard across the board. So I want a person responsible for creating that standard and executing on that standard. And that's what a systems engineer would do. On the right side, moving down, an ERP systems analyst. So the finance department right now houses a systems analyst who's responsible for the application we call Tyler Munis, which is our application that we use for finance and we're timekeeping, time and attendance right now. And so that person helps those departments, but that person doesn't live in IS. So if they have a problem that goes beyond their scope, they have to go outside of their department to get help. And traditionally, IS departments, rightly so, according to a financial auditor, they're very careful on who they give permissions to. We should be very careful on who we give permissions to. So we tend not to give permissions for people to do things at certain levels outside of the IS department. They're not trained appropriately. They don't work in the IS department. So we're very careful and not give them. What that leads to is that particular person who helps in Tyler Munis, it leaves them handcuffed. They can only do so much. If we bring that person into the IS department, if we train them, we can give them more access and they can be more productive. So that's going to be moving a role for Tyler Munis. What we're going to be doing over the next couple of years is improving our enterprise application for land management. And I will need somebody to help manage the land management applications. Again, right now, that is in SunGuard. So we have a half-time person who manages SunGuard. We will be moving away from that, and we'll need a person to be responsible for that. Follow the left side, going all the way down to the bottom, is a new desktop support specialist. The current specialist we have right now is often working till 7 p.m. I see his tickets. They're more than one person can handle. And as we look to move some of this work away from other people, that's going to put more of a burden on him for desktop support. So that is an area we'll have to shore up in the as we kind of shift things around and shift responsibilities around. That's an area that's going to need to be shored up. Yes, question. I see Councilor Jansen's hand.
Yeah, so aside from limiting access for security purposes internally, do we have a software like CRISP or something like that that tracks movement within our internal systems? That way we know who's accessing what. A year ago, we had an incident where that could have come up as a concern. Unfortunately for us, it didn't rise up to that. So, but you know, we want to be sure that we're safe and that we can see who's accessing what and for what reason, and that especially on the police side.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with CRISP. We have audit trails in everything. So all in our police applications, in our finance applications, and actually in our land management and UB applications, there are audit trails for everything. It's very manual what we have to do right now. If we want to go back and look who has been where, when did they access it, we have the capability to do that, certainly. We just don't have a software system that does it for us. We have to manually go through an audit trail to find that out. But yes, we certainly can do that. It's just not automated at this point.
Thank you.
Councilor Dumont?
Thank you. So the shifting of employees, will that be coming with a price differential in their pay structure? Will they be shifting to different areas? I don't know if Ashley's on here. Or, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the two or the three that you see in gray, they will be shifting. We'll start at the top. The GIS analysts live right now in two different departments. They will shift. It'll be a lateral move. There will be no financial implication there. The ERP systems analyst will be a lateral move, no financial implication there. The SCADA IT/OT systems analyst is a new position that's been approved. The pay grade for that, however, has not. So that will be going before City Council to approve that pay grade for that role. It has not been done yet. I'm hoping that could be done in March.
And then let's go to the big question, the green boxes, the new IT positions. Just in general, the IT people don't come cheap, and there's a reason for that. Off the top of your head, about roughly what kind of an increase, not including the lateral moves, are we going to be looking at for your department?
So I'm working with the HR director, Kimberly, and Karen. And Kimberly has been scouring her resources to find out, what a good pay grade is going to be, what a recommended pay grade is going to be. The application services manager is probably going to come in around $100,000 to $105,000 a year. The server engineer is probably going to come in around $75,000 to $80,000 a year. Those are the two highest priority. You'll see that on the next slide, how I prioritize those, but that's about where they will come in. The ERP systems analysts will probably come in around $70,000. The desktop support specialists will probably come in around $50,000 to $60,000.
And those numbers are just salary, not benefits.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Nichols.
Mike, I'm not sure if I'm directing this question to you or whomever, but it would appear to me that a lot of cities send us out to have consultants do this type of work. Is that something, are we looking at a cost benefit of using consultants versus bringing all these positions in-house?
That's something Bill and I have spoken about. There are certain things that we should be looking at internally and other things that we could be looking at contractually. What we're looking at here, we think, is a roadmap that would cover us internally for the next 3 to 5 years, separate from any outside consulting assistance that we might need. Okay. There are some areas where if there are technology changes, it may make more sense to contract versus provide the service internally. But right now, this is what we feel is the right roadmap for us on an internal basis. The big question that we have, I think this goes for any department, is bills come into what is now a new department that I think would be safe to say hasn't received the right focus that it needed to over the past number of years. And the question is, where do his priorities stack up against requests from other departments that need the same funding? And, does Bill's plan, become a 2 or 3 year plan or a 4-year plan? I don't know until we take a look at the needs of some of the other departments in comparison.
I think to help answer that question a little bit too, there's two schools of thoughts about bringing consultants in, at least in my experience. You bring them in for big projects that have a start and an end scope. And then when they're gone, they're gone. But you need somebody to maintain those systems going forward. And the roles that are represented here are, the idea is that they would maintain systems going forward. There's constant tweaks and changes to these systems all the time. Things break, databases have hiccups. Someone needs to maintain all of that. For larger projects that have a defined scope, we probably will have to bring in some consultants to help us do the heavy lifting up front. Otherwise, these roles are designed for ongoing maintenance of all of these applications.
Thank
you.
Mayor Hoffman?
I wanted to say, yeah, it seems like these are some pretty fundamental operations for the city. So I would see these being staff positions. And I guess the difference between the left side and the right side is a pretty big contrast. But I'm sitting here telling myself it's because this has been an area that has really been pretty neglected. And I can't imagine the efficiencies that'll be added if we do this right. So I just want to ask Mike, were there any surprises here for you? Did you expect it to be kind of this big of a ramp up, or any heartburn here at all?
No, the organization I came from, when you look at it from an order of magnitude, they were a department of 22, serving about 900 to 950 full-time employees, but again, full service operation. So the fact that we, at the time I got here, had a total of 6, I knew that was very low in comparative measures. But with that being said, I did not want to speculate what was needed to fill the gaps until we had the right person on board at the head of the department to ask the right questions, make the assessment, and develop that recommendation. I'm not an IT professional. I know we have a Holiday Inn Express here at the beaches. I try not to be there if I don't have to. So, Bill has come in and really asked the right questions of each department, taken a look at what we have in terms of hardware and enterprise applications, and developed what appears to be a very sound approach for managing our needs going forward. And I think that's really important, what he said in response to Councilor Nichols' question. What you see there is for maintenance of what we envision to have on the ground for both hardware and enterprise software over the next 3 to 5 year window. As technology changes, this org chart may need to change with it. But right now, this is our best approach moving forward and our best guess at what we will need to fill those gaps. Bill, it's back to you.
Okay, there's only one more slide, and then the tech jargon is over. So as I mentioned before, I have been working with administration, with Mike, with Karen, with Kimberly in the HR department about timing, budget, priority. What do we do first? How do we move forward? With gaps until we can fill some of those gaps. My asks over the next few years will be in order of priority. The IS manager over applications and the systems engineer to support our servers, like I was mentioning before. A medium priority, and I think it's only a medium priority because it's not immediately needed, but it will be needed in shorter order, just not as short as the manager and the systems engineer is the analyst to support ERP 2.0, and ERP 2.0 simply means our land management software suite, everything we're going to need to make all the improvements that we need to do in land management side. And then finally, the lower priority, again, only because it's not immediately needed. I have to do more assessment about when this will be needed, is that desktop support, the PC tech role that's going to help support all the departments. So that is it. I'm open to any questions that you might have relative to this. And again, I can send this presentation out to you if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them and follow up as well.
Councilor Dumont?
Thank you, Bill. Great job with your assessment and working through this. I agree with what your assessment here. And yes, this has been a long neglected area. It's like one of those things you just assume things work. And as technology changed and became far more complex, the system stayed the same. And so I like how you've tweaked out and divided some stuff up here. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So, and please do send the presentation. I'd like to have a hard copy of it. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Councilor Jansen?
Yes, I'm going to echo the same thing. Good job. Great presentation. It seems like you're on it. One little thing I want to throw out there that we did at JSO was kind of handy. We identified a handful of officers that were tech savvy, and we called them field techs and trained them up right. And whenever it was after hours, because the police are 24/7, whenever it was after hours and they had a tech problem or they had an enterprise software question, you could call one of these officers up if they had their dates and times that they were working. We had a schedule laid out. And so we could probably implement something that on a smaller scale for the city of Jacksonville Beach, identifying people that are tech savvy and that could help out. And, if somebody has an email question or, having trouble logging on for whatever reason, forgot a password, whatever it is, simple stuff.
Yeah. Informally, I would say that exists. It's just not formal and they haven't been trained. But there are those techies in the departments. Traditionally, they're known as subject matter experts, SMEs. They're out there, and it's part of what I want to get my arms around. How are they trained? How do they know what's going on? How do they know changes that the IS department is making? And so they could be a resource for us inside of those departments. This is a very excellent point.
All right. Thank you, Bill. I don't see any other questions. So you're free to go take your cold medicine. And
thank you.
So, Mayor and Council, the next item that we have on the agenda was a discussion of the strategic plan operational plan. Several weeks ago, I actually sent an email out to you that contained a listing of all of the objectives, the action items that we as staff had put together, along with some what we would consider preliminary Gantt charts showing the duration of each of those projects over the next 4-year window. And some of them, if you looked at the descriptions, they're actually going to go well beyond that 4-year window. My objective tonight was not to run through each of those, but to see if you had any questions with regards to the material that was sent to you, and see if there was anything that we could do to provide clarity or tweak some things. Clearly, the operational plan is intended to align our day-to-day activities and our short and long-term goals that we do here in the organization, and align them with the priorities and goals that you've established through the strategic planning process. We tried to make sure that we had at least one objective or action item for each priority and goal that was listed. I believe the total count is somewhere around 45 or 46. Last time I counted, we consolidated a few, split some others apart, added some in at the last minute. And we do also have some of the directors online if you have questions that are specific to anything that they would be working on. The thought process is that the document as you see it is currently in an Excel spreadsheet. Our CIO has been experimenting with some different project management templates. And for Councilor Dumont, no, I have not asked about pivot tables yet. But our thought process is to put it into something that's a little bit more user-friendly to move on the fly and on the go. But the thought process is that this document or a similar document would be reviewed once a year with council as an annual report card to talk about what we've accomplished over the past 12 months. We would also send it out at regular intervals during the course of the year so that you can see progress that's being made. If you take a look at the percent complete, which is the far right column on the matrix on the left-hand side, there are a lot that are at 0% because those projects haven't started yet. And there are some others that actually have hit the 20, 25, or 50% mark on their projects because they're things that we had already started in anticipation of the strategic plan moving forward. So at this point, I'd like to open it up and see if there's any comments, questions, thoughts from council on the document, the objectives, or the proposed reporting out to council. And if any, we'll start with Council Member Dumont.
Sorry, I got a mouse. I'm trying to get it out. Oh, like you can see over here, got lots of screen. I did have a question with regard to priority 3, goal 2, objective 2. If you want to, everybody can do that. It's on the 3rd tab.
Yep, and this is one that you and I had spoken about, so I'll let you ask your question.
The strategic plan for that says revive and implement goal priority 3, goal 2, objective 2, review and implement reforms to regulate government policies and attract local businesses. When it comes to that first piece under there, create LDC incentives to support existing business expansion. My interpretation of our conversation as council was, when we said business expansion, it wasn't the actual footprint of our current businesses so they can make their physical business bigger, but it was to expand the amount of local businesses that we have in the downtown area. Those are two very different pieces, and what's written here is how do we help our local businesses in an area get bigger in that area. So I would just like to know how council, when we said that, help businesses grow in the downtown, expand businesses in the downtown, did we mean expand the number of businesses, or did we mean expand the size of the current businesses?
And I would like to clarify that this particular item, I believe, is different than goal 1, which is specific to the downtown. So the one under goal 2, I believe, is supposed to be from a citywide perspective and not necessarily from a downtown perspective. So just that.
Mike, can you share your screen?
I sure can.
You mind sharing your screen?
Can everyone see it? Can everyone see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So here's priority 3, and we had 2 goals underneath it. The first one was develop a downtown that attracts residents, visitors, and commerce with some specific objectives and some action items under that. We're referring to goal 2, objective 2, review and implement reforms to regulations and government policies to attract locally owned businesses.
And I guess my part there was it's to attract businesses, not expand businesses. Because I think our current LDC with regard to building out a current location is, that might be a part that's actually not as problematic as many other parts of the LDC, personally speaking. There are some issues with it, but a lot of it ends up being state regulation and code and such. But, I just wanted clarity there.
And we can tweak the scope on that if council's okay. I still think there's going to be, to some extent, an LDC issue. When you start talking about local businesses getting established A lot of that will be moving into existing buildings or existing structures and infrastructure within the city. As the planning director and I have identified, there are issues when it comes to the nonconformity section of our code, which may be seen as roadblocks for older buildings, older sites, and for the small business entrepreneur that wants to move into them in order to achieve what they want to achieve. She and I are dealing with one of those issues in particular, which is currently on A1A. So that's local business trying to get established, but there are some issues within the LDC that are making it to some extent difficult to do. But clearly we can tweak the title and the scope on that so that instead of creating LDC incentives to support existing business expansion, perhaps it's creating or modifying LDC to support new business startup.
Right, and that's very different than what's written here.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that second one. I like to see more small more small businesses, but it sounds like the few that we have, we want to help them expand. So it's just a different way of looking at it. Thank you.
Taking notes. With me doing the screen share, I'm not sure I can see. I got to pull it up separately.
It's me.
There's one. Mayor Hoffman.
Yeah, so I think that the word expansion is confusing there, and I can see that if we have an LDC that is friendlier to existing businesses, that would help to attract other small businesses. So I like the idea behind it, but I agree that the expansion concept might be the miss. But overall, and that wasn't my comment, but I did want to respond to Ms. Dumont's comment. But overall, I really like this, despite needing to pull out my CVS reading glasses to read it on my printout. But I think the layout is very good, and it's very easy for anyone to see kind of the progress and the priority. I think they're well distributed among the departments and among each of the goal and objective areas. I'm sure that this will shake out, especially as we get into it and we're using this document and we're seeing were we overly ambitious in our timing, were we too conservative. So I'm looking forward to this being a living document. I kind of think we need to see it more than once a year, maybe twice a year. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm really glad to see this document come together.
Thank you. Yeah, and one of the things I would like to point out, and I think I did the caveat in the agenda memo or the briefing memo that covered this topic. This is the first time that this organization is working with a strategic plan of this type, where their departmental action items are aligned with a hierarchy of priorities and goals. It's also fair to say that the majority of staff that are going to be working on this from a project manager perspective, a lot of them have not had formal project management experience. They've not had the formal training. So to develop the project management plans, do evaluations of resources, and to evaluate resource demand across departmental lines will be relatively new for the organization to do. And that may have an impact on the scheduling of items as we see in the preliminary Gantt chart. So I wanted to make sure that all of the council knew that was our best guess. But a lot of it is we don't know what we don't know. And as we dive into some of these projects and take what's currently a one-page scope or a one-page project management plan, and we start to fill in the details, we may find that there are things that were missed in an initial vetting that may result in a more complex project and may result in having to reshuffle some of the priorities as we have them laid out. I just wanted to make sure that council was aware of that. Councilmember Dumont.
Thank you. I would see this coming to us at quarterly because it has each quarter demarked on it. So I could see us just seeing it quarterly and then just having a quick little update as to what's falling behind, what's going faster than expected. So this way, we make sure that everybody, like you all, are keeping on top of it, and we also can learn together how long some things take and how quickly other things go. So I think I think quarterly is a good way to just keep us informed, and also, it keeps us rechecking into a lot of the things that the city is doing. Because we have meetings and then we don't talk about it for another 6 months. We kind of forget about it, or a year, and so this is a good way just to keep us refreshed on it.
Okay. Councilor Jansen.
Yeah, so I like this document as well, and it being, I'm hearing you saying it's going to be like a living document that's going to be kind of updated and some changes that might come over time. I think that's fantastic. I also really love the priority one, quality of life, being that first priority. I think that's very important. Just want to say good job. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from council on this? Councilor Golding.
Yeah, I just want to chime in and let you know that I really like this too, and I look forward to seeing this unfold and actually get implemented.
Okay. If there's no other questions on the strategic plan, we'll jump into the miscellaneous items that you see on there, city manager miscellaneous items. There's 2 items that I'd like to have a conversation with you about. Let me see first if I can stop that share, which I can. Okay, perfect. And now I'm going to switch gears to something else. Let's see here. So what I wanted to talk with you about is JC's bus benches. Several weeks ago, I received a communication from a representative of the JCs. When I say representative, it's actually a subcontractor to the JCs. And they're, as you're aware, over the past year, I know several of you noticed that the JC bus benches on A1A, several of them had marketing material that got bolted to the backs of those benches. And after doing some research, we identified that the JC's company that they contract with for maintenance had gone ahead and installed them, thinking that the consolidation agreement for Duval County from back in the 60s gave them the authorization to put these anywhere within Duval County. It turned out the city of Jacksonville was actually in litigation with this company and the JCs starting in 2018. So the reason we were getting contacted was that in November of 2021, the JCs and the marketing company in the city of Jacksonville all came to a resolution on the benches going forward. And part of that acknowledgement was the fact that the marketing company agreed that they did not have the right to have JC's benches within the 4 subordinate municipalities of Duval County, of which we are one. So he was letting me know that unless we have an agreement with the JCs for benches going forward, at some point in the future, those benches would need to be removed. And so we started having a conversation about where we needed to go forward. And I'm going to try and pull up a document here very quickly. Please bear with me. I had it pulled up, but I accidentally closed it. One second, please. And screen share. Okay, hopefully you can all see the screen. Are you all able to see that? And hopefully it's not too small. But what you'll see is there's 20 locations that the JCs had benches within this, that they have benches within the city of Jacksonville Beach. Just the other day, myself, Ms. Nelson, met with representatives from JTA in order to determine whether or not any of the locations that the JCs would be removing their benches would qualify for a bench or a shelter under JTA's requirements. You'll notice that there are 3 different sets of colors on the chart that I've got for you to look at. There are 2 line items that are green, a whole bunch that are yellow, and some that are pink. The 2 that are green are locations that, based on ridership, JTA indicated they would be willing to place JTA benches in those locations. The yellow ones are all low single-digit riderships at those bus stops, and therefore they would not qualify for a JTA bench. And the ones that are in the pink or red color actually have 0 riders at those bus stops, even though they are official JTA bus stops. So the reason I'm having this conversation with you is because for the JC's bus benches to remain in place, they would require some type of an agreement that allows for advertising on the back of them. And I think that that's a non-starter, because that would require us reopening our sign ordinance, which I would not recommend to this council that we do. That was drafted by a national professional, and it was done for specific reasons. And the last thing we want to do is open it back up. JTA, however, did indicate that they would be willing to entertain an interlocal agreement for the installation and or regular maintenance of benches going forward. So the question I have for you from a policy perspective is whether or not it's the intention for the city of Jacksonville Beach to have a bus bench at every bus stop within the city, or to only have bus benches at those bus stops that meet JTA criteria. So that would be the first question that I would like to pose to you and hear your thoughts and feedback on that. So with that, I would be happy to see some hands go up. Councilor Meza.
Yes. You're saying the ones in the green are the ones where JTA will keep the benches without the ads?
They would install new benches for us at those 2 stops.
Okay.
The
Ones in the
new concrete pads. None of
Okay.
the other, either yellow or pink, would meet criteria for a bus bench.
Okay. So second question is, obviously benches will be removed and JTA will add new ones. Is this something JTA is going to pick up if it catches, let's say, media attention? I'm saying that this is something that they're doing and it's not.
No, it's not JTA that will remove the benches. It's the JCs that will come and pick up their benches and take them away. They do not have an agreement to keep them in our jurisdiction. And or at some point in the future, they will pick up their benches and take them away. So the question really is, does the city of Jacksonville Beach want to have benches at all of these stops where there might be 0, 1, or 2 riders, or comfortable using the JTA criteria that's really 10 to 15 gets you a bench. These 2 that are highlighted in green, they said they could stretch their protocols and give us benches at those 2 locations.
I know there's a bench outside City Hall, and I always see more than 2, 3 bus riders there. There's one right by Pablo Towers, and I always see people there. And I think that's about, I think there's a bench by Pita Pit. I'm not sure. I know the other stops on 3rd Street don't have benches. So
Right.
I'm trying to think where else, if there's any benches in the south and or in the north end that I can think of. But all I know is that I can remember all 3 benches. So, all right. Thank you.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you. These numbers look really low. How long, what was the time period where they gathered the data? Was it 1 day? Was it a week? Was it an average?
I do not know the time frame, but I do know that these are also ridership pickup numbers versus ridership drop-off numbers, and they are different.
Right. So the one on 3rd near 16th across from where a Whole Foods is, people use that one. And I'm taking it, it's line 8 and it has a 0 there. And there are people who work at some of those places on the other side of 3rd who use that bus to get home. So that's why I'm not understanding where the numbers just don't look right to me. They look very low for what I've seen at the bus stops and people using them. I've used the bus before. Probably not when this was going on, but the numbers just don't look right. It looks extremely low, I think is how I want to put it. So I would question the data that these decisions are being made off of. That said, I think more information on how the data was gathered would be very helpful for us to make decisions. But that said, I can see the city possibly doing some benches with good data to figure out which areas actually have people. Like those numbers look really low.
Councilor Jansen.
Yeah, I'm just, you struck a little bit of a chord with the interlocal agreement. I'm curious what that would look like, or what they were willing to put on the table, or what was that? How is that going to be structured? Is that just a wild guess right now?
I can tell you that we did ask the conversation about what the capital investment would be. You're probably looking at $10,000 to $12,000 per location for installation of a bench. That's for both the bench, the concrete pad, and the ADA compliance that would be required at each location. At that point, then we'd have to discuss what an appropriate maintenance schedule is for the bench itself. Keeping in mind that that is just a bench that does not accommodate a trash can or any other type of amenities next to the bench. So if you take a look at the bottom of the list that we put on there, JTA typically uses 10 to 15 pickups as justification for bench installation. 40 pickups is their justification for a shelter. Capital cost is about $11,000 per location, and the operational and maintenance cost is not factored in at this time. As I indicated to them, we would cross that bridge if it came to it from a policy perspective. If council said they wanted to have a bench at every stop in the city, then we clearly need to sit down and determine what the cost impact of that is. In this case, it's safe to say that there's 18 locations on this list that are JC's bus benches that would be removed. So if you do 18 times 11,000, you're looking at just about $200,000 capital cost to install a bench at each of those JC locations where a bench would be removed.
And this maintenance, this capital cost, that's just to install. What operational maintenance cost is that?
We don't
annually, I guess.
My guess is they probably need to go out there with some regularity.
Yeah. Okay.
Clean, touch up, paint, repair, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I feel like we need some more information, because when it comes to like you were saying, the trash cans or the maintenance to it, that's something that we would have to discuss with them and say, hey, listen, there's more to it than just a bench and a concrete pad. So, but yeah, more information is needed, I think.
Councilor Meza.
My thoughts is obviously the benches will be picked up by JC, but I would like to see those benches get replaced, and not, if we have 5 benches throughout the city, I would like to see 5 benches, replaced, not go down to minimal. And the other thing, I agree with Mr. Mont and Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Any other thoughts from council? Mayor Hoffman.
I looked up the map of the to Ms. Dumont's point. So the 1700 south of 16th Avenue South is probably the one in front of Bearded Pig, and the 19th Avenue South is in front of Whole Foods. which doesn't really clarify the fact that it's showing 0 ridership. So I agree, having that time frame would be helpful. But I also will say that we have plenty of bus stops in this community. There's one right down from the museum across 6 from Pet Supermarket that does not have a bench. So I know that we have bus stops in our community that don't have benches at all. Then we have some that have the really nice, the ones that Fernando mentioned that are really high ridership in front of City Hall and things like that, have the nice benches and the shelters. So I think we've got a little bit of everything already existing in our community. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up another another screen here for you really quick. Y'all see that one okay? So this is actually, hold on a second. So this is provided by JTA, whereas the last sheet was data provided by the JCs. And this gives you an idea of every bus stop that's in the city of Jacksonville Beach, broken out by northbound and southbound, and the ridership both on and off. So you can see that there are some stops where there's actually 34 that get on and 50 get off, and others where 8 get on and 2 get off with regularity. And again, I don't know the time frames that they collected their ridership data, but the people getting on and getting off don't necessarily have to match. It's not like a school bus. Some people may take it into work and then take something different on their way home. But this gives you an idea of, if you look down at the bottom, you'll see that there are some that say signs only. Those would be JTA bus stops where there is no bench, only signs and no JC bench to support it. And there are several others that are interspersed in here as well that talk about having either just a sign or a trash can, but not necessarily a bench, etc. So it is a little bit of a mishmash across the board, but it sounds like it is something that you'd like to consider a little bit more before making any decisions as to how we move forward with this from a policy perspective. That's safe to say. I see heads nodding. Okay, we'll get you a little bit more information, and it's something that I will bring back for a further discussion. The last thing I've got for you.
Mike.
I'm sorry, Councilor Golden.
Sorry, I had my hand up.
No,
I didn't see anything on there, or did I just miss it? Beach Boulevard bus stops, or was that all just A1A bus stops that was on your spreadsheet?
Hold on.
Was it on there? I looked.
Because I think that there's a bench at the corner of Penman and Beach Boulevard, but yeah, I was just curious as to what about those? And I think those, we probably need to inventory the Beach Boulevard stops as well.
That one has the First Coast Flyer with the shelter, and it's one of the newer ones.
Right. I think those JTA already does. And I think what we are looking at here are only the ones that have the JC benches, because it's the JC benches that are going to be going. So the ones that JTA already has built and all of that stuff, they'll be staying. So it's, do we use JTA for more, or do we put in our own benches, or we just let people stand by the sign? So
But
that's kind of how I
likewise-
see it.
Yeah, but likewise, I mean, if there's bus stops on Beach Boulevard and we're going to be putting benches in places on A1A that maybe have low ridership or whatever, that, you know, we should look at it, all of the bus stops, I would think. I don't think we just look at A1A. So that's my point. I think if we're talking about bus stops and benches, I think we need to have an inventory of all the routes, which is basically, I guess, A1A and Beach.
And I believe JTA only gave us the A1A corridor because that's where the JC's benches had historically been located. So I do not believe they gave us anything for Beach Boulevard, Penman Road, or South Beach Parkway. with regards to bus stops or.
But if we're going to do a policy, I would like to make sure that we're incorporating all the bus stops in the city, not just the A1A bus stops. So maybe we could get that information as well, Mike, from JTA.
We can ask JTA for the entire city.
Thank you.
Mike, just one quick question.
Yeah.
I want to say I'm 100% correct, and you could probably say you agree, but I want to say every JTA stop that they have throughout Duval, they're responsible for the upkeep in that vicinity, correct? If they have a trash can, if the weeds are growing around the bus stop, that's JTA's doing, correct?
JTA is responsible for taking care of their stops. When they enter into an agreement with a third-party vendor, or in this case with Jacksonville having an agreement with the JCs takes over responsibility for maintenance of that particular area. But in exchange, they're collecting revenue off of advertising that they put on the bench. So when someone says there's a certain bench that's broken or the trash can's full, some of those, they're not calling JTA, they're calling the management company for the JCs to go out and take care of it because it's a JC funded location.
Okay.
So I've got to ask the question from council in terms of priority, where does this fall on your radar? High priority, medium, or low? Sounds like a low priority.
I put it like to medium-ish, medium-low, because it depends on when JCs are taking out their benches. I think once those benches are gone, we'll know more. We'll hear if people are upset about it or not.
Well, that's that's one of the things I need to give the JCs the go-ahead on is the time frame for removing their benches. Again, they acknowledge that right now their benches are all illegally placed. I think it's safe to say that going forward, they would not be JC's benches. So we can probably go ahead and start scheduling the removal of them. The question is, do we put something back and is it a city bench or is it a JTA bench? It sounds like what I'm hearing. Okay, Councilor Jansen.
Yeah, just real quick, just based on the information we have at hand, I would consider it a lower priority.
Okay, I think I've got good direction on this. The last item that I want to bring up with you is just get some direction from you, your thoughts on sending a communication to the city of Jacksonville regarding management of the pier. Councilor Nichols had brought up a couple weeks ago that the city of Jacksonville was getting ready to do their RFP, and that now would be an opportune time for us to ask them about the city of Jacks Beach taking over that responsibility. I did exchange a couple of emails back and forth with Daryl Joseph, and the way he left it was, send us a proposal for consideration. So I just want to be clear on a couple things before we put together a proposal to send to them. And I think I know the answer, but I just want reaffirmation from council. Obviously, in the past, there has been a third-party vendor who has been responsible for the concession stand and the customer maintenance of the pier area itself. I'm presuming that from council's perspective, we would not be hiring a third-party vendor to run any type of concession, but this would actually be city employees working for the city of Jacksonville Beach, providing the customer service and maintenance of that particular facility. Am I right in that assumption, or are you thinking we would hire a firm to do it and we would basically be the new manager of the subcontractor? And Vice Mayor Nichols.
Well, initially I was thinking that we would hire a third party to do it, but with the incredible job that our staff has done with the golf course, and it gives us a lot more control to make sure that they're being hospitable, they're doing their jobs. I'm very, very open to having city staff manage the pier and do that. If it's not something the city wants to do, then I think that we should do an RFP to bring in somebody to do it and really work diligently to make sure that we're receiving the services that we would from that third party. But I'm all for doing it with the city. I think, I think we can, everything they've proved Parks and Rec has done, they've done it very well. And, I think it gives us more control. So I definitely want to request taking over that from the city. I would prefer not to having a long-term lease with the city and let them still handle the structural maintenance and long-term. I don't think we need to acquire an asset I don't think we need to acquire the asset. I think we could do it at a very, $1 a year kind of deal with them, and we'll maintain it because that alleviates at least something that the city of Jacksonville would have to do. So that's kind of where I am on it.
Okay, thank you. I'm also going to do a quick screen share again. I did a quick summation of what was in the last lease that they executed with a third-party vendor. And a couple of the things that make me a little nervous when we talk about city employees is the first two that you'll see on there, on-pier retail concessions, specifically dealing with live bait and food service. And I know that at the golf course, we rely on a third-party vendor for the food service. And I'm not sure where we would find someone who's a specialist in live bait.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Each of those, I'd like to eventually see a couple of food truck spots out there, and then maybe one that would sell live bait. Who knows? But I just think, there's plenty of options for if people are driving to the beach to stop and pick up live bait somewhere. I don't think we would need to necessarily do that. And I would like to see pedestrians have free access to it as well.
Okay. Councilor Dumont.
Okay, thank you. So a couple things with this larger piece. It is Jacksonville's asset and we don't want it. And I'm worried at that thing of $1 a year, that suggestion that, would usually how that would work is we have to maintain and hand it over in the same condition that we got it in. So that could be problematic, especially getting it as brand new. So looking at this with, do we contract or do we do the stuff ourselves? If we were to do it ourselves, we'd need to put a whole infrastructure in place to be able to do so. And we don't have time to do that before the pier opens this summer. Just all of the infrastructure that needs to go into it. With the contracting out, that would be, I don't see that as being problematic, other than from the point of Jacksonville going, why are we going to contract with you, who then contracts with another organization, and you need to take your cut for expenses? And now you're going to end up having to have it at a higher cost than what they can go with their own, them being in control of the contract instead of us being in control of the contract. I would love to have us have more say in how the pier is managed. I don't know if nobody thought it was going to get done. I don't want to say this quick, but this is something that, because it hasn't been quick, but this is something that we have not had a good discussion on. What do we do when it opens up again? So I think the best move that we could do, where we can make the best decision on how to enter into this contract, is to ask the city of Jacksonville to go, when they do an RFP, if it could be for a short period of time, because we are interested in getting involved with this. And we need to be able to build up our infrastructure or really identify how we will get our hands around managing the pier. It's more complex than us just are we managing it or are we contracting it? And so, what would the difference be between us managing the contract and Jacksonville managing the contract? If Jacksonville would be, I'm taking it when you say this, you're saying that Jacksonville will be still paying for it. You're saying that we pay a it's going to be coming out of our dollars, not Jacksonville. So there's just I need more clarity as to what we're trying to do here. I understand the larger concept and I agree with that, but the devil's always in the details on how we get it done.
Yeah, obviously there's two different ways to look at it. One is we could be the service provider, period. You hate to say it, but we could always reply to City of Jacksonville's RFP and see if they choose us based on our proposal. The other option is they allow us to make the decision of either doing an RFP or staffing it ourselves and seeing if they would be amenable to turning over that control to us. So it sounds like there are definitely pros and cons to both. And again, I'm just trying to get some idea from council what your thoughts were when we all said, yeah, let's take over the operation of the pier. What did that really mean in terms of sending a proposal letter to the City of Jacksonville before we put something on paper? I don't want to give them the wrong impression and then say, sorry, we were just kidding, or that's not what we meant. Councilor Meza?
Yes, I don't know if I want to get a third party involved if we end up managing it. Maybe we could get Trevor Hughes to give us a couple pointers since he's doing a good job with the golf course. Maybe he could give some input on the pier. But I do. Everyone's bringing up points. I think if we were to manage it, we would take better care of it, and we would do. I guess we would show our pride, our Jacksonville Beach pride, on our pier, and hopefully, once the pier is open, we could talk about doing a beautiful entrance to the pier, just like we're thinking about doing all these modifications to our signs around the city. So I'm all about taking over and managing it. That's where I stand.
Okay. Councilor Jansen?
Yeah, so Fernando took one of my points. That I agree that we should probably have Jason Petites or Trevor or both of them, throw some input our way as to what they think and what they see as the challenges for that. And, they might have some insight that we otherwise wouldn't be thinking of. But I'm all in favor of, that we should really be in talks with COJ about taking over the maintenance of it, how that looks. And this might go back and forth a couple times before we come to a final agreement or something that's feasible.
Dan, do you mean maintenance or management? Very different things. You
Both.
said maintenance.
Both maintenance and management.
Councilor Nichols?
I'm not sure what infrastructure will need to be added that Councilor Dumont brought up. My understanding is that we just need somebody with if we're going to charge people to get in, they get out. I don't foresee this as a very challenging perspective. I don't see going to City of Jacksonville for them to do a short-term RFP. I think that will, people want these and they want to take them over long-term. I think that we get with Trevor and Jason and see what they need in order to run it. I mean, it is the reason people wanted to do an RFP for it and run in the past is because it can be profitable. I think we just need to look at what maintenance will need to occur. I don't on a structure like that, I would imagine like a bridge in the state of Florida, you'd have to get a inspection every 2 years on it. But I think we try to do it as a city first, And if it's something that is not working well, we can always do an RFP to get a third party in here to do it at a later date.
Councilor Golding.
So my understanding is that this discussion about managing the pier started several years ago because there was a lot of dissatisfaction with the service that was being provided. And there were issues too with which I guess were COJ issues, but basically my feeling is that we should think about going with a contractor first, like what we're doing with our parking, the paid parking. We've got contractors that are doing a really good job with that. It would be a way to at least get it under our control. The thought would be that we want it to be the contractors to be under our control, because then we can make sure that they are meeting our standards. And if we feel like it's not, the contractor, that's not a working solution, then we can at least move into phase 2, which would be potentially us operating it. As far as the maintenance goes, I was not under the impression that we were going to maintain the pier. My understanding was that the city of Jacksonville would maintain the pier. What would be maintained might be the area where we would be selling concessions and things like that. And maybe there would be some day-to-day stuff like cleaning, where the fishermen are cutting fish all the time and it's, gets messy and all of that. But when we talk about maintenance, I don't think we're going to be getting into structural stuff and things like that. And I think we would want to make sure that we are not signing up for that.
Mayor Hoffman.
Completely agree. I think a day-to-day maintenance type of thing versus a structural maintenance, we need to make sure we're really clear on. Mike, is there a requirement for what has to be provided out there? Do we have to have live bait? Do we have to have food? Do we know? Okay.
I'm going to go back to the screen share. Hold on.
I mean, that's just what was.
This was a summary of what was included in the RFP, and I've basically summarized a multi-page document down into these bullet points. It's safe to say that there was a lot of emphasis on the issue of live bait. And the reason being is they wanted the concession to sell live bait in order to dissuade and prevent people from trying to catch bait off the pier and then either giving it away or selling it to other individuals, which is why if you take a look down on the proposed pier rules at the bottom, they also had a prohibition on hand lines cast nets. So the intention was that whoever has the concession is selling bait, probably a combination of live and dead, and quote unquote making profit. That term is used repeatedly throughout the RFP document as well. So in terms of when you take a look at what the responsibilities were, there were the on-pier retail concessions, bait and food. There was janitorial services, which I think is probably the maintenance that the council is speaking to. It's talking about pressure washing, trash cans, making sure that the entire area appears nice and clean, and that if there are any structural issues noted during visual walkthroughs or observations, to report those to the city of Jacksonville. Security services 24/7 for the pier area. They were also looking for any innovative ideas to generate revenue for the pier as well. Compliance with the interlocal between COJ and Jax Beach, reports, hurricane preparedness plan, staffing, whoever takes this over is responsible for all staffing. The hours of operation were deemed negotiable. The city would take over pay for all utilities. The capital improvements were specific to the concession area. If there's anything that needed to be done to improve that concessions building or the bait building, that would be on whoever the vendor is. And then finally were the rules that they expected to be enforced on the pier with regards to rollerblades, surfboards, sitting on the railings, throwing items, sleeping bags, etc. They wanted to make sure that the vendor had total control and was enforcing appropriate rules. So I think the RFP took into account what the council's been saying about not taking the responsibility for the actual structure of the pier, not having to do those inspections every couple of years or so, but really focusing on the actual service delivery and the cleanliness and appearance and security for the patrons that would visit it.
So this is the prior scope of services, and we're treating that as the requirements or the assumed requirements for future services, but doesn't necessarily have to all be in place when the pier
Right.
is reopened. What is the current financial, or what was the prior financial relationship? Did they pay rent, and they just made whatever money they made? Do we know what that was?
I do not know. I've got a copy of what was the RFP, but I don't believe I have a copy of the actual contract that was executed with the final terms and conditions.
I would be interested in the financial relationship because two things. One, I don't like that we charge people to walk out onto the pier. And two, we heard there was a lot of rumblings of the fact that it was a cash only business, and that maybe the actual financials were not fully known. But if they were making what they were making and it wasn't a relationship with the city at that level, then I guess it doesn't matter. But for me, the biggest priorities are having the customer service at the pier be reflective of the customer service that we provide everywhere else, because like it or not, people think this is our pier. I don't like, and I've probably said this 100 times, I don't like the fence at the entrance to the pier. I think we're planning on making a pretty big investment into the appearance hat. That I think we need to think about the fact that it just looks like a prison entrance, and it just seems very unnecessary to me. Even if it just looks like, well, we're doing the same thing as them and contracting out the business, if we're managing the contract, we're going to have a lot closer handle on that. If for whatever reason we decide not to do, and I do see this being a third party, I don't see Trevor in the back cutting heads off fish, or whatever you do with bait. But so I do see it being a third party, but I would like it to be a third party that we are closely managing. If for whatever reason we decide not to go down that path, I would hope that we can ask the city of Jacksonville to somehow let us be involved in that selection. And maybe we're just a little more hands-on this go around than we have been in the past. Cause I think we've just kind of said it's Jacksonville's pier, we're not going to worry about it. But I've talked to enough people now that I don't think we can do that anymore.
Councilor Meza.
Question. Whenever there was an issue with the pier before Hurricane Matthew and when it was reopened briefly, what was the response time from the city of Jacksonville to replace or fix something, whether it was major or minor? Do we have that information?
I wasn't here. I have no idea.
Mayor Hoffman, do you happen to know anything? Or if we could get that information? I'm just curious because I know the city of Jacksonville, I'm not trying to say anything bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't quick to respond to a minor or a major issue. As if we were there, we could get Public Works or whoever was in charge, like, hey, bathrooms aren't working, or we could get on it quicker than the city of Jacksonville. So I'm just trying to figure out if the response time was adequate from the city of Jacksonville when the pier was in full operation.
I can say, if y'all don't mind me jumping in, I can say in my tenure of living out here for many decades, I don't remember it ever being closed for any extended amount of time. Sometimes a day here or there, but nothing really extended that I ever recall.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you. I think what this discussion is really bringing to the fore is we need to talk about this a lot more with the with costs and all of that. So I really like Mayor Hoffman's idea of asking Jacksonville, can we be involved in the selection of the contractor. And we'd have, and we could have some kind of an oversight role, but we would have a say in what the services are and who's running it, and we have a little bit more say. So this way we have our hands in it, but we're not too far in it. Over time, if we want to expand that and we want to take over a contract, we can have the conversation then. We're just kind of hitting this time crunch. If we don't have the time for in-house right now, so it'd have to go to the contract. And even doing a contract, if Jacksonville's already getting the RFP ready, we need to get we'd have to get our own RFP ready if they would agree to let us do the RFP. So I think let's just see if we can work with them and how much they will let us be involved in the process and the oversight of their contract.
Councilor Nichols.
I disagree. I think we need to do everything that we can do to take management of the pier responsibilities over from the city of Jacksonville. It has continually been an out of sight, out of mind thing for them. And the reviews that the management has gotten over the years has been horrible. If they do an RFP, it's going to be a 3-year with multiple years added onto it. We need to make this done right. If we're going to get our CRA and everybody functioning together, we need to get the entranceway done. We need to have full control over the management of that pier. That's either in-house or doing an RFP. We can take the old RFP and modify it to make it work. There were workarounds that the people selected last time finagled getting the job, getting the contract, and it needs to be locally owned and it needs to be locally operated by Jacksonville Beach people for it to be as successful as it can possibly be.
Okay.
And also my guess is COJ would like to get away from this, get away from it as well. They would very much like for us to take it over.
All right, I think I've got some pretty good thoughts, and I'm not seeing any more hands up, so that'll wrap up that last item. That'll bring us to the last 2 items on the agenda: future briefing topics and committee assignment reports. Anybody have any committee assignment reports they'd like to report out first? Councilor Jansen.
Yes, we had our first quarterly pension meeting last week. It went really smooth. Re-elected some seats in there for another tenure, and then the overall, if I had to give an overall percentage, we're sitting right at about 81%. We have some retirements that just occurred, but we have a lot of retirements that are coming up, I believe, in the next quarter or next half. I think we got up to 10, so we're going to be looking at that as well. But pensions still strong, going well.
Excellent. Any other council members? Councilor Jansen? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do have. Do we, the audit selection committee, do you want to talk about that, or do we want to wait on that, or?
If you'd like to report it out as being an assignee to that committee.
Sure. So we have, council member Stokes and myself are part of that committee. And we went through the process over several months now of identifying who is our best auditor for the city of Jacksonville Beach. And it turns out that with an overwhelming majority that Purvis Gray is going to be our selection. We're just asking that they change partners for transparency's sake. So they're going to be, or we're going to let them know that they're awarded the RFP, and we'll see where we go from there.
Okay. Seeing no other report outs, Any future briefing topics council would like to discuss? Seeing none, I'm going to close the briefing and wish everyone a very happy Valentine's Day. And we'll see you all next week at regular council meeting, which will be on the 23rd due to the special election on Tuesday and the holiday on Monday. So 6 o'clock chambers and the 23rd. We'll see you all then. Mayor Hoffman, you have something you want to say?
Oh, I just wanted, you guys might have gotten an invitation about the Girl Scouts that are going to be coming in. That's optional. So we have one of our local Girl Scout troops coming in just to learn about civic engagement. So anyone who wants to come by earlier, please feel free to. And no matter what, when you do show up for the meeting, there will probably be a Girl Scout sitting in your seat. So please do your usual very welcome and that Jack's Beach customer service.
Are they bringing cookies?
I just asked that they bring Girl Scout cookies.
Yes,
You know,
I agree.
I don't think they can they sell Girl Scout cookies
Oh,
on property?
Maybe not.
So
Yeah,
you guys
maybe
might
not.
have to meet them out in the parking lot. So we can work.
They
I'm
can
sure they're used to
donate.
that we can work it out. And I didn't I didn't say it during the committee report outs, but I think we had a very nice trip to Tallahassee. Fernando and Georgette and Mike and I went, and our lobbyists just had us hooked up with a ton of meetings and lunch, and just felt like we were I didn't know where we were half the time because we were just following our lobbyists at top speed through the halls of the Capitol. But it was great. It felt productive in relationship building. So that was good.
Excellent. And Councilor Golding?
Yeah, to the mayor's comment, I will say, Mayor, that when I went in 2020, our lobbyists did the same thing then. I think Mike would agree, and they did a great job. And so I'm really glad that they took good care of you guys and that you had a good experience.
It was fun and productive day, that's for sure. I agree, but good times.
Excellent.
Okay, well,
Right.
It's been a fabulous spending Valentine's Day with all of you. I can't think of anyone else, any other group that I would love to spend with it more. So thank you. Aww. Aww, isn't that cute? Have a good night, everyone.
Everyone